So welcome everyone to the Philly Talks Trash virtual series on waste. Tonight's topic is food, waste reduction and recovery, a subject near and dear to me, and I'm sure to most of you, since you're on our Zoom tonight. Before we start, I'd like to thank you all for attending and thank everyone who put this program together. With a special shout out, as I already have, to Elaine for her technical assistance. Just a little housekeeping at first. We need everyone to please stay on mute throughout the entire program. I know you know that we're going to have a Q&A, but we're going to handle that through the chat, and we'll have a moderator who will be me. So please stay on mute throughout and use the chats for your questions for the speakers. I think that you should ask those questions to everyone, but you can address if it's a specific speaker in the chat itself, in your text that you write. But you can also use the chat to put in announcements from organizations that you're involved with, or resources that you think would be worthwhile to share with everybody. And we'll be capturing that chat at the end. If there are questions or resources to share that we can share out with people after this program is over. So my name is Hilary Baum, and I want to thank you all for attending. I've been a regional food systems educator, advocate, and practitioner for many years. I'm a member of the Plastics Reduction Task Force of Weaver's Way and the Philly Neighborhood Network's Environment Action Committee, both of which are hosts for our 7-month series. And I also happen to be a member of the Weaver's Way board. And I'm very happy to be here tonight. As someone very committed to reducing food waste at home in particular, I am the target of plenty of teasing by my family and even my friends, famously saving half cloves of in-season garlic, freezing fresh tarragon in cubes of butter, and holding leek greens in the fridge for soup long after the paler parts were used for something else. As for food waste on the huge scale we'll be discussing tonight, I am amazed and horrified about its negative impacts on climate, public health, and on individuals. Did you know that 30 to 40% of food grown, processed, and distributed in the US is considered waste? And that of that 40%, close to 22% is considered municipal solid waste and ends up in landfills where food happens to be the single largest component. In addition to wasting energy and water, the overproduction of food also unnecessarily generates greenhouse gases in the fields and additional pollutants, as well as greenhouse gases as it decays in landfills. Globally, wasted food accounts for about 8 to 10% of all greenhouse gas emissions. In addition, globally, reducing food waste by 20% can provide enough food for 25 million people. It is because food waste is a nexus of climate, environment, and health issues and of particular relevance to our own city that we choose to highlight it as part of this series. The city has set a goal of zero waste by 2035, when the use of landfills and conventional incinerators are to end. As we asked last month, how are we going to get there? Hopefully tonight's program will contribute to our understanding of how and what we can do along the way. So Elaine, can you give me the next slide, please? So we put together this series on waste because we believe in participating in the effort to move towards zero waste. So how are we going to make the shift to do this? We're going to reduce our waste. We're going to replace our throwaway culture, and we'll help to slow climate change as we're making the shift to this new paradigm of zero waste. Elaine, our next one. So here is a list of our topics that we have scheduled for the next several months, actually through the third Thursday in July. Our topics might switch around some of the dates, but we'll definitely notify you in advance if there is such a switch. So so you can see here that we've highlighted tonight's topic. So Elaine, the next slide, please. So tonight's topic, as you see, is food waste reduction and recovery. And I just want to review the agenda very briefly and remind you that this series is being hosted. It's a collaboration between the Philly Neighborhood Network's Environmental Action Committee and the Plastic Reduction Task Force of Weaver's Way. So we're going to hear first from Corey Mansell, who is from the Ecology Center for Ecotechnology. Corey will present to us and help set the stage and create the context for our discussion that will follow. And she'll, of course, tell us a lot about her work and the work her organization has done in Philadelphia. And then we'll go next to Kate Boulder, Director of Food Sourcing for Philabundance. And we'll close our speakers with Siona Aurora, founder of the South Philadelphia Community Fridge. So as you can see, we're going to be talking on a lot of different scales. And then we'll follow that with our Q&A. And then we plan on closing, and we'll close by 8 o'clock. So I want to introduce a lighter moment in this serious conversation with our next slide. And here we go.
Hellman's wants to tackle food waste, so naturally, they hired this legend.
Don't toss that. You can make grilled cheese with that bread. Not on my watch. You can make potato salad.
Grandma! Don't throw away that spinach!
Make a frittata.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Mom's already tackling food waste, Mayo. What's a big guy?
Sorry, man. Had to.
I get it. I'm very hittable.
Make taste, not waste, baby!
So as some of you know, but most of you probably, well, actually, I don't know who knows this or not, but this was an ad on the Super Bowl. And what I love about it is that it's estimated that the average Super Bowl ad was seen by 106 million people. So food waste hits the mainstream, a plus for our general awareness efforts. So I hope you thought that was fun. I did. So Elaine, we're going to
Hellman's wants.
And I'm going to introduce Corey Mansell. Let's see if I can see Corey on my. So Elaine, can you make sure to highlight Corey? There we go. Okay, great. So Corey is the client services strategist at the Center for Ecotechnology. And we're very excited to have the Center for Ecotechnology through Corey participating with us tonight, because the center has been looking and working on food waste in Philadelphia for a couple of years, and you'll hear about that from Corey. Corey serves as the chair for a couple of organizations, as you can see, and they seem to all have the word composting in them, but we're not going to talk a lot about composting tonight. I'm very happy that Corey's with us. Corey, why don't you start your presentation, and we'll be looking at Corey's slide deck.
Great. Can you see my slides?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us this evening, and thank you for inviting me to speak today. As noted, I'm Corey Mansell with the Center for Ecotechnology, and I'm the client services strategist. So for a little bit of background on our organization, CET is a nonprofit that helps people and businesses save energy and reduce waste. And for over 40 years, we've been helping businesses and institutions implement programs on the ground while also contributing and implementing effective public policy on these efforts. So I will be honing in on our wasted food solutions programming, which does help states, cities, businesses, and institutions across the country address wasted food. And so, of course, noted earlier, this is an important topic, and we know there's huge potential to reduce this waste and either recover it and redistribute it to our communities or put it to more beneficial uses, whether it's feeding animals, creating a nutrient-rich soil amendment through composting, or creating energy through processes such as anaerobic digestion. Although we've been a nonprofit for over 40 years, just since 2013, we've been able to help recover more meals, divert more food from disposal, and which ultimately benefits our communities, the environment, and our bottom lines, as a snapshot that we have here. And to clarify, we're not a service provider, but we do facilitate the best matches and create resources to support long-lasting partnerships. And our organization helps businesses and institutions, as well as solution providers across this EPA food recovery hierarchy. So looking at prevention opportunities and then looking at the other opportunities as well. And we see it more as a linear process because sometimes there's opportunities to start with composting, but having it in a separate bin, you start to notice, oh, that's edible, or oh, that was preventable, and you can work your way up the hierarchy. And the same goes for the reverse. I mentioned that we help businesses and institutions, and so one way we do so is we help food generating businesses and institutions through our no-cost waste expertise. And these discussions are either in person or virtual, and we then develop a customized recommendation report after our meeting. And here's a snapshot of some of our assistance that we can provide, which is customized to each entity, acknowledging, yes, food scraps can be food scraps, but food scraps might also mean that it's edible, and let's work to recover that or rescue that. Or maybe it's not best suited for a food rescue organization, and we want to facilitate those best matches. And we, of course, noted earlier, we do work cross solutions, and we recognize that importance of appropriate matchmaking and goal setting. So what's attainable for the business, what's financially feasible, and what's going to get you to your goals in a long-lasting way. And I was invited today to speak about how in general and in Philadelphia, we can create a robust marketplace for addressing wasted food. And taking a step back, we partnered a few years ago with Harvard Food Law and Policy Clinic and to develop a document called Bans and Beyond. And in that document, it outlined how we can design and structure organic recycling laws, and what was the reasoning for them, how were they implemented, but then also, as noted in the toolkit's title, Bans and Beyond, we also have the and beyond component, which is looking at, okay, so once you have that policy, what are the enforcement mechanisms? How can we facilitate infrastructure development across the EPA food recovery hierarchy? And how can we get businesses and institutions and consumers to be aware of these opportunities? And that's where we noticed that this puzzle piece is really what's going to create the most robust marketplace. I will note that we do say policy, but that doesn't mean it needs to be a formal organics recycling law or a waste ban. It can look slightly different depending on the city or state. So maybe a zero waste plan, and that just sets that tone for food waste diversion opportunities whether it's reduction, recovery, and recycling. And so here's a snapshot of just where that stems from. So looking at organics recycling or organics disposal bans and recycling laws and how they're structured. And I can put a link to that toolkit in the chat later on. And there you can kind of take a deeper dive of how those policies look, and then also the and beyond. What are the policies and programs that can work and complement these laws and bans? I do want to focus on Philadelphia and what's currently happening in the city. So in Philadelphia, to incentivize recycling and composting and ultimately reduce waste sent to the landfill, the city ordinance in 2015 stated that grindable food waste, so that means produce scraps, small bones, leftovers, is not permitted to be disposed of in the waste dumpsters. And to share this information and further the education opportunities around this, the city recently developed a printable online guide for commercial properties about the proper management of food waste in Philadelphia. And that's one area where our organization is helping businesses understand what this means for them and how they can go on their way of implementing programs that abide by this. To clarify, we're not a regulatory body, but we do, I informally call us the bridge between the solution providers and those that have surplus, as well as those that may be regulating or enforcing or setting these zero waste goals and plans. Another aspect that helps marketplace activity in Philadelphia in particular is Philadelphia's zero waste goal, which is to fully eliminate the use of landfills and conventional incinerators by 2030. Again, thinking about that puzzle piece and the bans and beyond toolkit, what are those policies and policies that are going to work for your city? And here's that zero waste goal that sets that tone, recognizing the priority to reduce our waste and find other alternative methods of disposal. Then we also have the sustainable business tax credit. And here it's showing that the city is motivated to partner and collaborate to reduce waste, where businesses are incentivized to implement these programs. We know that more and more consumers are requesting that their retail grocers, that their restaurants, the businesses that they're supporting are looking into sustainability measures. And this is one way where it's helping them implement those measures, and then also receiving some credit for and in respect to their actions. The Philadelphia Health Department also issued new guidelines or guidance explaining how restaurants and food businesses can safely incorporate reusable to-go containers into their takeout service. And this is as of August 2021, where all existing food establishments in Philadelphia were allowed to start offering reusable containers without applying for a variance and incurring fees. So this is really exciting, and again, another way that policy is setting that stage and that tone for the priority and the motivation behind reducing food waste and also other waste streams as well. And here I will also put in the chat later where you can find more information about this. And I believe I actually read in the news that Tiffin, a restaurant with 9 locations in Philadelphia, implemented a container take-back program. And so this is, again, another way that we're showcasing that this is picking up media traction. More and more folks want this, and it's also happening in the city. Here's a snapshot of a few Philadelphia businesses that we have been working with the past couple of years or have worked with, including ShopRite, the Philadelphia Parks and Rec Department, and Department of Prisons and Rittenhouse. And Rittenhouse, for example, is a zero waste partner in the city, acknowledging that their efforts to reduce food waste and then also recover the edible surplus. Then we also have the Philadelphia Parks and Rec Department, which is doing great work to recover meals from their after-school programs and summer programs, and then also implementing composting programs for the Parks and Rec Department itself. And then ShopRite, working towards zero waste and other sustainability goals. So the task force today is co-hosting this series, so we want to give them a special shout out and highlight some of the sustainability efforts within Weaver's Way. And so in addition to the practices listed here, the market also has an impressive history of being passionate about sustainability. If I was closer to the co-op, I know I, as a consumer, only personally speaking, would definitely love to shop there and support the co-op, of course, as they're supporting healthy and sustainable food systems and provides, area for farmers, food producers, and other merchants to connect with customers. And we really, it kind of goes in tandem, right? When we're thinking about, how is our farmers, food producers, and merchants connecting with our customers, and with those consumers, you have a extra respect, hopefully, to prevent and reduce as much waste as possible, since you have that more direct connection. We also recently launched our food waste business challenge with the city of Philadelphia, and this is with support from USDA, and it's an exciting opportunity to offer technical assistance to businesses which have applied to the challenge and help businesses adopt their own applicable strategies, and also offers a marketing opportunity and exciting measurable impact. So here you can see that NRDC did a study for the city looking at where the food waste is coming from, and a high percentage of that is restaurants as well as other food permitted businesses. So the challenge was open to all food generating businesses in the city, and of course, with restaurants, how we can aggregate and create a cohort of these and challenge participants, again thinking about when you're telling another chef or another restaurateur, oh, this is how I prevented food waste or upcycled it to reuse it in a different way. It's really exciting and creates it sets the stage for more conversations about this that isn't just our organization who's passionate about the environment coming in and saying, oh, there's too much waste here, let's find solutions. It's more of a, hey, how can we be innovative about this and really put some excitement behind this. So we are in the midst of our challenge right now, and each entity has their own strategies, and we're working through that with them. And at a certain point, we'll also gather everyone again to talk about how it's going, and then there will be exciting marketing opportunities along the way, as well as the impact beyond it. Here's a snapshot of our participants, where there's Bar Huga, Random Tea Room, Weckerly's Ice Cream, Relish, Musi BYOB, Earth Bread and Brewery, Birch Tree Catering, and Balboa Catering as well. We don't think of this as a standalone challenge. Again, it can set that foundation for maybe additional challenges or other ways that we can be creating these networks of folks that want to be working towards waste reduction, because we all acknowledge there are some unpreventable waste, and then there's also opportunities to upcycle it, reuse it in different ways, think about it creatively, and really put our heads together to make it more of a living being, I suppose. And I'll just close out with our Wasted Food Solutions website, which offers state-specific resources, including resources for Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, case studies, as well as guidance documents on these varied topics, and also our hotline, which is available to food generating businesses and institutions that would like to receive our no-cost technical assistance, or looking for a sounding board for how their programs are going. We're happy to work with you to either implement them or expand them and look further upstream or otherwise. For institutions and the hospitality industry that might be participating today, or if you know of folks, we do have a virtual workshop coming up on March 8th, and you're all more than welcome to join us. This will be focused on the strategies that institutions in the hospitality industry can implement to reduce, recover, and otherwise recycle wasted food. But to register, feel free to email wastedfood@cetonline.org. And again, thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. I'm looking forward to the next panelist.
Thank you, Corey. That was very interesting and full of information, and we'll be able to, you can use the chat to share some of the things that you discussed, including a link to your hospitality seminar would be great. So now we're going to go to a different kind of presentation. We're going to hear from two other speakers who we're calling panelists. And while Corey helped us to get a broader view, just get locked in terms of the larger context, our next two speakers are going to be able to speak more directly to what's going on a very local level here in Philly. Our first speaker is going to be Kate Boulder, who is the Director of Food Sourcing from Philabundance, and she's going to be followed by Siona Aurora, founder of the South Philadelphia Community Fridge, who's going to take us in a mind-blowing twist of the head to a whole other level and other way that we are dealing with feeding people in the city. So I think we're going to start first with Corey. I'm not Corey, I'm sorry. We're going to start first with Kate, and Kate's going to talk to us for about 5 or 7 minutes about the work that she does at Philabundance, and also talk to us about their project that she oversees called Abundantly Good, which is the organization's upcycling of surplus products, which I think is really very interesting. So Kate, why don't we go to you?
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. I think everyone should be able to see my screen now. So let me know in the chat if there's any questions. I'm just going to give a very brief touch point on a few different programs that we do at Philabundance. So as Hilary mentioned, I'm Kate Boulder and I'm Director of Food Sourcing. So here's kind of the basics. This is how our program works. We bring the food, it flows through our system, it goes into our warehouse, and then it goes out to the community through a very large, amazing network of agencies spread over 9 counties. So 5 in Pennsylvania and 4 in New Jersey, all kind of surrounding the Philadelphia area. We have about 360 agency partners, and then we have about over 500 food donation partners. So my team is really focused on food in, which is going to be a mix of, again, those food donation partners, which can come across the whole food spectrum. And then we balance that out with, we also get government commodities, so TFAP and other programs like that. And then lastly, we are lucky enough to be able to purchase a lot of high quality food to kind of round out all of our food offerings and to kind of balance each other. So the government food provides a consistent source, but it's, you know, a very simple, basic product. Donations can be really wonderful things, but they sometimes, we go through periods of feast or famine. So donations go up and then donations go down. So it really allows us to kind of balance all of those things. For our donation side of the program, so overall, during the pandemic, to give you some stats again, we distributed over 52 million pounds of food in the last year to the community. So again, that's made up of all of those different source streams. And then from there, about 42% of that is food that otherwise would have gone to waste. And so that's going to come from everywhere from farmers to food industry, manufacturers, distributors to wholesalers, and then it's going to go to retailers. Retailers are probably the largest portion of where we're able to rescue food. So that's grocery stores like Acme, Giant, ShopRite, as Corey mentioned, and others, to things like Amazon, Starbucks, anyone you can kind of think of, we've probably partnered with something like that. The benefits of this program is that it helps in a lot of different ways. And so I listed some of those, but for our agency partners, it really provides high quality, variety, and different types of food. And then the benefits to grocers, as Corey mentioned, there's a lot of benefits around reduced hauling costs. They can get an enhanced donation tax credit, and it's morale boosting for their staff to see that food not going to, their trash cans and instead going out to the community. What allows us to do this so confidently is that we have a lot of guidelines to allow for the food to be quality, so that it can assure both the grocers that we're handling this food well, as well as the agency recipients, all the way through to the individuals who are going to end up eating that product. We want to make sure that we're following good guidelines and different guidelines for, meat, dairy, eggs, produce, things like that, so we can maintain the highest quality. We also know we want to use technology. So trying to figure out, we work with other partners and kind of right size what's the best option. So we've partnered with Food Connect and Sharing Access, and they can do some of those smaller pickups and deliveries to agencies. And then, as Hilary mentioned, we also have Abundantly Good, which is our small retail program, but we're really proud of it. It is, you can find it in the Giant Heirloom stores in Philly, as well as some of the co-ops. DeBruno Brothers carries it as well. And so every time you buy this product, $1 from every pound goes back to the farmer. So you can kind of see how it works with that little diagram there. And so when he'll hold on to the money, and then when he has surplus milk or product that he can't sell to another outlet, he's able, and we're able to partner with him so that he can use that money to process it into cheese, and we can give that cheese out to our clients for free. So it's the same high quality cheese that you're buying in these, fancy, beautiful boutique stores is what we're able to give out to the individuals receiving our services to. And so that's kind of where upcycling comes in this term around reducing food waste, finding better impact, helping the farmers, helping the people we serve, and also helping the planet. So it's kind of this multi-level impact. So that's my quick overview of Philabundance and our programs. I'm going to send it over to Siona, and she's going to talk about South Philly Community Fridge, and I'm excited to hear about it.
Thank you very much, Kate. I just want to remind people to please use the chat for their questions. I see their questions coming in. That's great. So just keep on putting them there. Thanks. Siona.
Hi, everyone. My name is Siona, and thank you so much, Kate. I'm a huge fan of Philabundance and of Weaver's Way and all of the other initiatives. So I'll ask the audience if you can just put in the chat whether or not you have used a community fridge in your neighborhood before. So I'll give everyone a few minutes to do that. I'm hoping that we see some participants. In Philadelphia, there are about 30 community fridges in all sorts of different neighborhoods. In addition to the South Philly Community Fridge, where we do have 4 locations around South Philadelphia, there are other fridge organizations like Fridges and Family, Mama T Fridges. Great, it looks like some people have donated. Yes, there are fridges in West Philadelphia. There is one in East Falls. There are a couple in Germantown. And so community fridges are completely community led. South Philadelphia Community Fridge is not a nonprofit. It's fully a mutual aid effort run by community members. So we started in July 2020 during the pandemic, when food scarcity and food insecurity in Philadelphia was just skyrocketing, and we wanted to be able to supplement efforts that were already existing, because it was so difficult there was such an overwhelming need that we wanted to make sure that people in our direct community were able to access food. And so in the beginning, and today still, we do spend a lot of money on shopping for food. So we currently have 4 fridges that are hosted by the South Philadelphia Community Fridge Organization that we shop for 4 days a week. We stock the fridges with essentials such as milk, bread, produce, things like that. We also make sure to include fun things like cake mix, hot cocoa mix in mugs, and spices and condiments and things like that. We really try to be receptive to what community members are asking for. That is probably one of the biggest ways that we do reduce food waste. Avoid food waste, is because we are trying our best to make sure that we're providing food that the communities will actually want to eat. So for example, when we first opened the fridge, we were getting dozens and dozens and dozens of bagels, and that's great, but there's only so many bagels that a community can eat. And so there were bagels being left in the fridge, bagels from bakeries where they were taking their food waste and putting it in our fridge, but that wasn't necessarily something that the community would always want. And so a way that we can eliminate that food kind of being left in the fridge is by stocking the fridges with things that community members are asking for. Another way that our volunteers are really heavily involved in reducing food waste is, again, if there is an opportunity for food that the community might not want in its form, we can transform it. So if you open any community fridge or pantry, I can almost guarantee that there will be canned carrots. Canned carrots are, for some reason, everyone's favorite thing to donate. There are lots of canned carrots and other canned goods. Things like canned beans are usually welcome, as well as canned fruit. Canned carrots, not so much, for whatever reason. So we have volunteers take those cans that would otherwise sit in the pantry and make carrot soup or other things with that. So we do accept homemade meals as well. Other examples of that are if there are bananas in the fridge, sometimes we have pounds and pounds and pounds of bananas that are put in the fridge. And again, only so many people will take those. If the bananas are sitting there for a little while, community members will take the bananas, make banana bread, and put it back in the fridge. So I think that's a really wonderful way to see food stepping through multiple different phases. We do get a lot of food from organizations that we partner with. And so let me just pull up that list, because we do have several. So some of these have been one-off donations where we take extra food waste. Some of them are weekly pickups. And so we have worked in the past with giant supermarkets. We also have pickups from ShopRite and Moms every week. ShopRite is where we are usually getting food that is close to its expiration date. So sometimes, unfortunately, there is food that does have to go to waste from those drop-offs. We also get food from Moms, other organizations like Sharing Excess and the Share Food program. And we use the Philly Food Rescue app to do a lot of those things. It is difficult sometimes for community fridges that don't organize as a nonprofit, because a lot of larger grocery store organizations will only donate either food or monetary wise to established nonprofits. And so that's definitely something that is a restriction for some fridges. There are some fridges that choose to stay mutual aid and community supported, and some of them who grow larger do become nonprofits. And so a couple of questions that I'm seeing come in just that are directly food related or fridge related. Our community members, we run into them. We clean the fridges and stock the fridges 2, 3, 4 times a day. we meet the neighbors who are there. And if we're putting things in, they'll say, oh my God, like I love that brand of pancake mix, like please give us more. Or, you know, we'll observe these canned carrots have been sitting here for weeks and weeks. Obviously, no one wants them. We also, you know, so we see what ingredients people are taking quickly, what people are maybe leaving behind. The electricity, so we actually have 4 fridges that are hosted at different businesses. Electricity for a fridge comes out around $300 per year. And so we do offer to cover the cost of that electricity, but usually the hosts will cover it, the cost. So right now, our fridges are located at Smith Playground on 24th and Snyder, or 24th and Jackson. The community bar, which is on 21st and Federal Street, and that bar and restaurant will also donate some of their leftover product as well. We have a fridge at Bach Building, which is really popular because there's a school right across the street, so there are always people who are using that. And then we've partnered with Fridges and Family to support a fridge and pantry in the Italian market as well. So there are fridges all over the place, and we always welcome more. I think that the community fridges have really done a lot of on the ground work to supplement a lot of the larger organizations and projects that are going on in the city. You know, unfortunately, because it is community led and there's not necessarily as much oversight, sometimes, unfortunately, there are food that goes to waste. We actually, unfortunately, do have the issue of people might not always donate respectfully. So they'll say, okay, I have this big box of stuff. I'm just gonna leave it on a bench because the fridge is full, and, you know, well, here's my donation and it's done. So unfortunately, when food is sitting out, we do have to throw it out. So we're also really mindful of making sure that we educate the community and help them understand how best to utilize the fridge to help themselves and their neighbors. But overall, it's really successful. The South Philadelphia community fridges are some of the longer running fridges in the city. There are community fridges all around the country. And so I definitely recommend, you know, Googling your neighborhood or your city. You know, if you just Google Philadelphia community fridge or Germantown community fridge, you know, you'll probably find something that pops up. And I definitely encourage everyone to donate to your community fridge, whether it be, you know, sending money, dropping off food that you purchase, or even dropping off homemade food. You know, definitely look up each fridge's rules because they all differ, but they could always use everyone's support. So thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be able to provide a more on the ground, like lower level aspect of how an organization combats food waste. And I'm excited to answer more questions. Thank you.
So Siona, thank you very much. What I think was really kind of funny was, since Kate had turned the thing over to you right away, I didn't really get a chance to introduce you. And one of the things that really stuck out to me is that you have a background in logistics and management. And it certainly seems like your background really helped you get this project together.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. So I didn't actually come from a nonprofit background either. I currently work at a nonprofit, but I hadn't at the time when I started the fridge. I didn't really come from a nonprofit background, and unlike Corey and Kate, I didn't really have experience with food waste or food distribution, but it was just a need that I wanted to see filled in the community. And like so many others, because of the pandemic, I had been laid off. And so I had that time on my hands to kind of learn this new area. And I definitely think it helped getting things off the ground. We have some amazing volunteers. So I have taken a bit of a step back, but I always, commend the volunteers who are kind of more in charge of the fridge right now. And I'm like, you guys are amazing. Like, thank you so much. And they were like, well, we're happy to run it, but like, we never would have had the motivation to get it off the ground. Like, that was where a lot of, the hard work, honestly, had come in. Finding hosts and sourcing fridges and finding places to donate. So those are definitely that was definitely helpful. But I've definitely learned a lot as well in terms of how to interact with the community. Working with a community is really, it can be really challenging at times, but it's really fun and exciting to meet new people and to, be helping each other. The last thing I'll say too about community fridges is that it's for everyone. I don't like it when I hear people be like, oh, like I'm donating food, for those in need. We all need food. If you're dropping off some homemade banana bread and you see some pancake mix that you really want, you shouldn't feel bad about taking it, even if you have access to food and you're not necessarily food insecure. Because this is ultimately a community organization that should be able to thrive no matter what community it's in. So there's not necessarily, the mindset of like, oh, like this is for people who are in need. Of course, it's a resource for people who are in need, but it's not solely for them. It truly is for everyone in the community to not take advantage of, but, to have access to.
Great. Thank you very much. So as we go into our broader discussion now, I think we do have a bunch of questions that have come in, and thank you everybody for that. Before we start, I think I want to go back to our speakers and ask if any of you have a question or want to be in discussion with each other, because we'd love to hear from you how you relate to each other's presentations, meaning, like, how does this puzzle fit together? How do all of you kind of fit together? I mean, we thought you did when we put the program together, but I think it's really interesting to be talking about what we're talking about, in this variety of scales, amongst other things. So would any of you like to kick it off?
I'll kick it off just from the sense of, I noted in a few of my slides, that we're the we want to be that matchmaker. So we want to facilitate the best suited connections within the city and beyond. So thinking about it from a business perspective, and we're walking through and we're identifying, okay, this is the type of product that you're going to see quite often, or case by case. Okay, this, food rescue organization might be best suited to what they're able to pick up and when, and then also, and in addition to those that may have, a set regular schedule that they're looking for, if it's shelf stable products or prepared goods, we can facilitate that match. And that's where the two other speakers really come in, because without them, we wouldn't be able to make those matches. So we're very grateful for those partnerships, and we always want to be as up to date as possible on what they're looking for, what their needs are, what they see as the next opportunity, so that we can be on the lookout as well when we're talking to a business. Because sometimes, honestly, a business comes to us and they were not thinking about the surplus edible food. Sometimes they just want to comply with a policy or just start composting, and we can start them we'll meet them where they're at, and then talk to them about those other strategies along the way.
So does that mean that it's possible that Kate knows some potential clients for you?
Oh, we've worked together. I've had the opportunity of working with Phil Abundance for a couple of years now, and they're a great food bank and organization.
Great. Kate?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Sienna, you were bringing me back to the beginning of the pandemic and thinking through all of that in the beginning. And yes, we all play different roles. Phil Abundance, we are visible in some ways because we are so large and we can do things at a very grand scale. I never thought I'd be in the place where I'm like directing traffic of container ships and truckloads coming from Canada and things like that. And, but but also we have to all work together, because there's also, we need to understand what's going on the ground too. And so Philabundance does do some direct distributions, but a lot of our work goes through other agency partners. And so we get a lot of feedback from them and trying to understand what works and how do we continually adjust to provide better services. And yeah, early in the pandemic, I think it was like all hands on deck for everyone. And we all did lots of different jobs. And, we had like our, one of our guys who was IT, like on a forklift and driving things. And we all just like pitched in doing different jobs. And that I was amazed at so many community members just stepping up and being like, okay, I can help out the community. And I think it was important because we could provide one thing and we did these like big drive-throughs and all this other stuff, but that doesn't work for everyone. And so you needed to be able to have like a network of services that people could access for different times and different needs. And I think that's why it's worked really well. And, we all have to be here in some ways, I think.
Great. Sienna, do you have anything you want to say to either Kate or Corianne?
I'm just so impressed and so happy that there's so many different initiatives in Philadelphia. And Kate, I 100% agree. There's efforts on every different level, from it helping businesses to helping individuals. So I think, of course, all of those different levels play such an important role in the ecosystem. And I'm so glad that there are ways to educate businesses that might not have that knowledge, Corey, to be able to contribute those types of resources when they might not even have intended to in the first place. Okay, I'm going to pick some questions that we have here. So here we go. A question from Lenny. Are there issues with the health department regulations in terms of donated food? I don't know. Is that question for Sienna? Lenny, are you there? Okay. Sienna, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. So the fridges do operate under the Good Samaritan law that are on federal and state levels. So there aren't necessarily health code restrictions. The community members do, understand, I guess, the risk that's associated with taking food from the fridge, but I know that different fridges have different restrictions. So for example, for a very long time, the South Philadelphia fridge didn't accept meat products because of the chance that they would spoil. And now we do accept cooked meat, but not raw meat. So again, there are some restrictions that we implement. Unfortunately, sometimes that does lead to food waste. If someone puts ground beef in the fridge or something, we have to throw it out because we don't know how safe it is or how it was transported to the fridge. So that's definitely something that we run into. Whenever we do prepare homemade foods as well, we make sure to list ingredients, especially allergens and things like that. And again, of course, people who are donating food, make sure that there is information listed on the container about when it was prepared, what ingredients it includes. And, we of course encourage community members who might have allergies or other restrictions to just be really mindful. Of course, if there's any doubt, if you have a severe peanut allergy, we would probably encourage you to not take homemade food because we just simply can't guarantee that a volunteer cook who's cooking in their home kitchen, has a completely sterile environment. So, we do set those guidelines for the community, but also trust the community to be able to make really good decisions about what they're putting in the fridge and what food they choose to take out of it.
Okay, great. I guess I had a related question, and that is, what about liability insurance? Do you guys have to carry that?
So it is all protected under the Good Samaritan law that, so there is a federal level law, and then Pennsylvania also does have a state specific law.
Okay, here is a question. And And I guess this would be for Kate. A question from Jane Pico. I'm wondering whether for conventional for-profit grocery stores, food waste is a tax write-off, the way that other shrink like theft might have waste and dispose of it.
Yes. So there is also a federal enhanced tax credit. So beyond just when you donate to Salvation Army and you donate clothes or something like that, there is an even higher level for donating food. So the same thing, Good Samaritan Act applies. And then one level above that is being able to abide by, you're donating the food in good faith. It's without any potential issues, that it's going to go to a nonprofit and that they are going to give that food out for free. So we have to certify that, yes, we've received all this product. It is going to go out. The people who are going to be able to access it, they're not being proselytized to, they don't have to pay for the product. There's no other stipulations around it, and everyone can get free and easy access to that food. It can definitely be a benefit to businesses, and we're helping them to see that as do something good that's also good business. So you're helping your community, but it's also helping you too. So we're trying to get them to see that more. And then also that, yeah, you can save money because it costs money to throw out food as well. So not only are you getting a credit, you're also saving some money too.
Great. Sorry, I'm having a little craziness with my computer. Okay, expiration dates. Maybe Corey, you could help us with this. Expiration dates on food are more suggestions from the manufacturer, to my understanding. How is this balanced? Okay, here. I can't tell you. Can you please discuss that? I just lost the rest of the question.
Sure. So in regards to, yes, exactly, those dates, there is work being done to advocate at a federal level that to utilize use by for the products that you certainly should follow those guidelines, and then best by, so that we can address from a federal level, how can we all set the same standards? Because when you're a consumer or a restaurant, you see use by, sell by, best if used by, sell by, maybe I already said that, but nonetheless, there's a lot of confusion around there. And so there are entities that are working towards and advocating for the best buy for those products that don't necessarily, that can still be utilized after that best buy date. And then there's the use by, which is a little bit more, direct in the sense of food quality and what you really want to use and sell. And so they are working towards that. And it is something that I believe ReFed, as well as Harvard Food Law and Policy Clinic, and maybe another website also has these policies listed by each state. So if you're really curious about how different it can be, feel free to peruse those search engines. It is quite incredible what you can kind of find from state by state.
Just to add on to kind of what Corey's saying, think about it from a manufacturer's perspective. That's what those dates are on there, is that it's an internal mechanism to tell retailers, you need to take my product off and restock it with new product, because it's a way for them to say, I can't guarantee the freshness past this date. The bread may be not as soft and fluffy as it was when I first got it delivered to your location. And they want to make sure that they can say, here is a consistent level of what we're providing, but it's not necessarily that it's a food safety issue. There's very rare times where it's actually a food safety issue. The majority, and so what we do is that our donation guidelines are, we have a set that goes towards our vendors and our retailers that we work with to say, okay, often about 180 days past the best by date is when we say we'll still accept product, because we still want to have some life left on it. So that way you can give it to an agency, and then the agency can give it to an individual. And then we also do education on the other side, because we don't want anyone to feel like we're giving them bad product. And so we need to make sure that we're also helping our agencies and those individuals that are receiving the product know that it's still quality product. So most of this is really just, it's been such a confusing thing for so long that we have to kind of like go back to basics, go back to like smell tests, try things. Like everything is usually typically pretty good. We just have to think about that a little bit differently.
I guess here's a question from Maurice that each of you could answer. We could start with Corey. What are the current challenges in getting more restaurants to donate food?
Liability concerns do come up quite frequently, and that we are working on the education front of working with them to recognize the federal Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act, which was already mentioned, but reiterating that. And then there's also the voice of, oh, well, it's, yes, I'm protected, but then it's also dependent on the local health department. And so working with those entities where we can all be at the figurative and literal table, talking about how, no, we're supporting these efforts as long as you're donating in good faith. And I like to translate to that to, if you're treating the food as if you're giving it to a customer, you should be okay. You are okay. Maybe then you need to reflect on, if you are concerned about that, what are you giving to your paying customers? And then also another one that comes up with restaurants is them feeling as though they don't have any surplus to begin with. And that's where we, as an organization and others can come in and also help, and it not be a, pointing our fingers or any sort of, it happens. There's going to be surplus at varied times. Sometimes it's more consistent based on your model. And then you can have a scheduled routine of pickups, but also working with agencies that can pick up on the ad hoc basis where, maybe it's once a week, maybe it's once every other week, you cater an event and you have surplus that didn't go out to the floor and still kept at temp, et cetera. And then finding those matches where we can facilitate a pickup agency or organization that can work with them. So those are some of the challenges that we work through, but I see that as always the opportunities to have these discussions.
Great, thank you. Kate, do you want to add to that?
I think that explains it really well from the restaurant side. I would say from the recipient side, some of the bigger challenges around logistics. So kind of what Corey was starting to touch on, like how do you get the food at the right time for when people need it? Restaurants close at midnight to 2 a.m. Agencies aren't open at midnight to 2 a.m. So how do you think about those kind of things and consolidation, and then also packaging? So yes, it's an extra expense for them. So sometimes, if they're operating at very low margins, getting them to feel comfortable being able to spend money on packaging to donate that food is another hurdle for them. So helping them to get used to it. We've made it work for some. So like we have a good partnership with Reading Terminal Market, and that's where we can have donations from all of those vendors, so that if only one has donation opportunities one day and one has another day, we still have a consistent schedule. And so it allows them to build up that those opportunities there. But it's definitely a challenge for each different type of restaurant and where they are.
And Siona, I bet you have restaurants that you're working with.
Yeah, so a lot of that is the same issue, especially as both Corey and Kate mentioned. It's often on an ad hoc basis versus scheduled because we're completely volunteer run. Sometimes it is difficult to match up a volunteer to pick up the food from a restaurant. We often work with restaurants who will also drop off food. And so there are a couple of places that
it's less than a partnership with a restaurant and more that like sometimes a restaurant employee will take it upon themselves to take food and drop it off to the fridge. And so, for example, in the summer of 2020, we had a volunteer who worked at Laser Wolf, and so they would bring Laser Wolf leftovers, which was amazing. So that was like, but that was really a one-off kind of thing. She would just do it whenever she, you know, had the opportunity. It wasn't necessarily something that we were able to rely on in terms of stocking the fridge. So I think it's a really great way and it's a great additional way to support the fridge, but unfortunately it's not something that we can rely on to stock the fridge.
So I have another question for you that has come up a number of times through the chat. And that is, a number of people have asked, how can we donate a refrigerator?
I would say reach out to local fridges. Sometimes what's more helpful than donating a fridge is leads on where we can host a fridge, because businesses are rightfully sometimes wary of hosting a community fridge that does come with its own, you know, liabilities and risks for the business as well. And so often we'll actually have a surplus of offers to donate fridges, but we don't have anywhere to put them. And so if anyone has leads on businesses that have expressed interest in hosting a community fridge or even a pantry, that would always be much appreciated, because we really need places to put fridges before we can accept fridge donations.
Great. Okay, I'm trying to get through this. We have a question from Kim. How do each of you make sure that you're connecting with community need, getting community voice into your process and programs? So, Kate?
Yes, that is definitely something that's very important to us about how do we center people in our work. And there's a long way to go. It is really challenging because of the scale that we work at. Trying to truly connect with what individuals are looking for is not something that we can do well all the time. So it's something that we're doing more surveying and questions, and we're doing like focus groups on different programs and feedback sessions, you know, all the typical things you do. We also think about it in two different ways. Recipient agencies is one stakeholder group that we get feedback from, and then also the individuals that are eating the food, because there's challenges on both sides. So someone may say, I want more healthy food, but then an agency says, well, I don't have a freezer to store all that healthy food. I don't have a fridge. Okay, so what's their capacity? How do we help them within their own constraints? So we ask a lot of questions around, what are your resources? How many volunteers do you have? What's your space like to get down in? Like, so if you're in a cupboard at the bottom of a church, how many steps do you have to go downstairs to get all that food down there? So we really think about that. We've gotten a lot more also into balancing nutritious food and culturally responsive food, and trying to think about providing enough variety and different types of food. So not everything is always going to be the top of healthiness, but it's things that we're hearing requests from. So we've like my classic example lately has been talking about black tea is something that we stock on agency ordering because we've gotten a lot of requests for it, but it takes up a lot of space. It doesn't move very quickly. And as far as like ordering from agencies, and it has no nutritional value. So it wouldn't be something we would have stocked, but it's something that we've been hearing requests from, or different types of cooking oil. We've got olive oil, we've got canola, we've got all the different types that people can use. So we really try to offer a range so that people can have more choice of what they pick.
So Corey?
As an organization that works across the country to varying degrees, we do frequently connect with the solution providers, which I encompass to be, you know, the food banks, the food rescue organizations, to tell us what they're looking for. And so thinking about those matches between the businesses and institutions that have, you know, surplus, and making sure that we're making the appropriate match. So those are the folks that we're interacting with. And again, thinking, you know, roundtable discussions, workshops, specifically geared towards them, so that we're hearing from them either on a one-on-one basis or from a kind of collaborative approach as well.
So, Siona, do you want to add more? We've heard some way that you interact with your people in the community when they're actually at the fridge, but can you tell us more about that?
Sure. I think it's pretty much face value when I'm at the fridge. There are people there who are shopping from the fridge, and so I'm obviously able to see what they're taking. There is often a language barrier, so sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to get that message across. But as Kate had mentioned, in terms of like what's culturally appropriate or even just culturally wanted, so like a lot of produce that you might not typically see in like a regular quote unquote regular supermarket. More produce that you might see in an Asian supermarket is food that turns over really quickly, and so we're able to see that and provide that to people as well. We also do take, like, I guess in general do take requests from folks, and so one of our fridges is at a playground, and so of course there are lots of kids there, and the kids are very vocal about what they would like. And so, obviously we want to make sure that we're providing nutrition for the kids as well, but sometimes they're like, yeah, I want Dunkaroos. I'm like, yeah, of course I'll get you Dunkaroos. Like, why would I not? So yeah, sometimes it really is just as simple as just, people asking for what they would like to see more of or saying what they don't like, which I think is a really unique opportunity. Of course, it does mean we're catering to a pretty small, as compared to, Philabundance, a pretty small number of people. But, that's kind of the goal. We're providing food to a couple dozen families. And so because it's that really small insular community, we are able to be a little bit more particular.
And a related question for you, and maybe you said this before and I missed it. Could you tell us, you mentioned that the locations of the fridge are usually associated with the business, even though I don't see how that works with the playground exactly, but could you tell us how you literally choose your locations? Is it is it a request from the people in the community, or where does that come from?
The playground, it's Smith Playground, which has, I think it's a Parks and Rec's office at the playground. And so there's an office there that we have the fridge plugged into. So we have it plugged in on the outside of the building. We work at, with the community restaurant, and again with Bach. We do have, and then in the Italian market as well. And so my goal, I guess, I think it's a very lofty goal, is to just have as many fridges as possible, because there's there's food scarcity and food insecurity in almost every block in the city. And so we do get requests. And again, it is really about finding businesses to host. Before we opened our fridge at Smith Playground, people were, asking us every day, can you please put a fridge south of Snyder? I would love to, but businesses keep turning me away. Mm-hmm. So it really is, that's a challenge. Of course, we do want to be aware of where we're putting them. And I would love to give like a shout out to some other mutual aid efforts, specifically Homies Helping Homies in Point Breeze. Not a necessarily food project. They do give out food and other, daily supplies, dishwashing detergent and things like that. And they, are very particular about giving back to their Point Breeze community, because it's an underserved population. It's one of the highest areas, like majority Black population, and they are very committed to serving that specific community. For fridges, because it's a little bit more difficult for us to find locations, we honestly take what we can get when it comes to hosts. And so again, if anyone is aware of a business who would be interested in hosting a fridge, I'm happy to put it wherever they want me to.
Okay, great. And then one more question for you. You seem to be very popular in the chat. For those of us who grow, this is from Trinka, for those of us who grow and donate vegetables, what are the most desired fresh vegetables and herbs that people want?
We accept all sorts of foods. Off the top of my head, I can't really think of fresh produce that we wouldn't want. Fresh produce is always something that is, pretty readily consumed. I would say it's a lot of the boxed products that will sit in the fridge or pantry for longer. And then usually potatoes and onions, because those are usually sold in bulk. We usually just get a ton of them at once. And so those are things that I would probably say, don't go out of your way to put them in the fridge. But other than that, any fresh fruits, veggies, or herbs are always welcome.
Okay, great. All right. I think that's most of the questions that have come in. And I hope I didn't miss anything. I want to thank you all, each of you and all of you, for participating and making this a really interesting conversation. I guess my question would be to each of you, do you want to make a closing comment since we have a minute or two? Corey?
Well, if you feel free to share our contact information with any business or school in the city that would like to work with us. We are, thanks to grant funding, we are available at no cost. So we're happy to be a sounding board for free to help them work through what match will work for them. So feel free to share our contact information and the links that I put in the chat earlier.
Great, thanks. Kate?
I was just going to say thank you. I enjoy these conversations. It's been a little while since I've had even a virtual one of these conversations. So this has been really nice. And it's nice to just be reminded of all the different ways that everyone's working in the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm so happy to have been here and to have met Kate and Corey. And please donate to your community fridge, food for the people.
Thanks. So before we close, I'm going to ask Elaine to please put up our final slide. So of course, thank you all for attending. Thank you to our speakers and to everybody in our audience and all the people that helped put this together. We have a request. We're looking for volunteers to help specifically with MailChimp and graphics for our plastics reduction campaign. So I believe there is our email. It's right there on the slide, wastereductionphl@gmail.com. And if you want to be part of what we're doing, just let us know. We're always looking for more people to join our planning sessions and join us on some other campaigns that were related campaigns that we're working on that you'll hear more about in the future. I want to let you know that next month we are, for March 17th, our topic is Philly's trash and recycling crisis and what you can do about it. So we've changed the wording just a bit. Our invited speakers include Maurice Sampson, longtime environmental advocate and Philadelphia's first recycling coordinator, together with Julie Hansher, who's the co-founder and editor of Green Philly. They'll be offering a historical and current day perspective of the city of Philadelphia and waste management services. For those who do not want to wait till 2035 to practice zero waste, we'll feature presentations and discussion among 3 local companies offering private collection services from your home of food waste for composting and virtually anything else you would like to recycle. So that should be a really fun and interesting conversation as well. I hope you'll join us in all of our upcoming programs. Or you can also check us out on Facebook or on the web. And if you go back to the Eventbrite link, and we'll be contacting all of you with the links that were mentioned tonight, and also how to link back to our Eventbrite to register for our future events. So I'd like to thank everybody. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful, less wasteful month until we see you again. Thanks. Bye-bye, everyone.